what really gets in the way for a lot of people and a lot of CEOs is their own programming, which they're not aware of. So the conditioning that we all fall under as human beings. And sometimes we don't even, not sometimes, most of the time, we're not even aware what's there in the unconscious. And so we stumble, we reach to a point where either we stumble or we fall or we stop. We're stopped. So we reach to a certain point and we stop. So I think that that's the biggest chunk of it. It's really the unawareness of what's there in the unconscious that really has people become limited or hit a wall, so to speak. And so it's really about, making people aware or bringing them to distinguish certain things that are in the way, but they're not even available, not even evident for them to even see. So I think that that's a big one.
So coming back to, we both believe that, humans, we have unlimited potential, major potential. So that's one truth. The other truth is that we do create unnecessary limitations. Like we believe stories we've been telling ourselves or others have told us since we were kids, and we can remove limiting beliefs. But we still do have limitations in there's 24 hours a day. If we were to be awake all 24, we're going to kill ourselves. We got to pick some battles. Like we got to have time for recovery. We needed time for the fitness. There's work, there's life, there's kids, there's all sorts of things. Is how do we unlock our potential while navigating the limitations we have? Like, yes, I could go do an Ironman, but I'd have to sacrifice something. So right now I choose not to go do an Ironman because there's things to do in work and life and church and everything else. Sure. I can't be doing 20 hours a week on training.
Right.
So I have potential to do an Ironman in, let's say, 10 hours. And I could probably do one now in like 13 or 14. But to me, I'd have to sacrifice too much in life to go and push for it. So I believe I could do 10 hours, but there's limitations.
The limitations are only the ones that we set on ourselves. But then at the same time, we have to be practical.
Yeah, that's my point.
Right?
Yeah, being practical.
Yeah, being practical. So there's an aspect of being practical, or I would say staying and keeping it real. Keeping it real means that, there is only 24 hours in a day. What can I accomplish within the time that I have in the wake state, right? And I think a lot of us have had very little training and very little muscle in being effective and efficient. And so it's learning to be more effective and efficient with our time that allows us to do more with the time that we have. And so that's part of it. And I think keeping it real is very important. So, we could definitely dream big. We can definitely dream all kinds of dreams, and at the same time, it's like, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to sacrifice everything for Ironman? So we have to set our priorities, right? And our priorities, well, we have to give time to family, children, and everything else, because if we don't give time to that, then they disappear in a sense. And then what happens? What happens when they disappear? Then it becomes a world of me being just self-centered, and it's all about me. So life is not just only about me, right? So we have to have equilibrium and balance in and as far as how we want to live our lives with what we include in our lives. So if we're including family, children, and other aspects, then we have to have that balance. And if we just stay self-centered, then all we have is just ourselves. And then why include family? Why include children? Why have family? Why have children? Right? Why have friends at that point? So there has to be that level where we have that state of equilibrium and balance. And yeah.
I guess changing gears quite a bit. I'm thinking of the tech industry has a lot of mental health issues and stress and burnout. I don't know if what you've seen, is that more than other industries? What's been your feel on that?
My sense I think it's across the board. I think it's just a human condition. When people go out of balance, so what that means is, are you taking care of yourself? Is there me time? Or is it you're spending too much time? Are you unbalanced in the sense, are you spending too much time on one thing? Are you not eating well? Are you not exercising? Are you not taking time to decompress? Are you not taking time to remove stress in your life? Are you happy with what you're doing? So all of those things. And I think it's in general, it's in every walk of life that people that lose balance will tend to have, those kind of issues. And it's really about, gaining balance and regaining balance and bringing all that back into balance. I think it's important. We're multifaceted beings in a sense. And if we were to break it down in three basic things, we're biological beings that have biological needs. We're psychological beings. We have psycho-emotional needs, right? And we're spiritual beings as well. We have spiritual needs. So those three things need to be balanced, because if any of one of those gets off balance, it's like a three-legged table. Then it loses balance, So we need to really keep that in mind and saying, how do I keep that, in check? So I think it's across the board. It's not just the tech industry. I just think it's a human thing at large.
Yeah, I'm trying to think outside the tech industry and people I know who've been burnt out, time off from work, different things, and yeah, it's lack of balance. They're pouring themselves too much into the workplace or something, and it's out of whack.
That's
They're
right.
not getting the family time or the sleep or the recovery or whatever it might be. But I guess from my perspective, being in the MSP industry, is obviously tech is changing a lot. A lot of this is still a very new industry. A lot of these things have not been figured out not for that long. And we're not going back 100, 200 years or thousands of years like agriculture or education or other things. It's really only 3-4 decades old, and it's still rapidly evolving. Look at AI and machine learning and chat GPT and all these things. It's cybersecurity. It's very rapidly evolving. So dealing with that, changes in clients, working from home, there's a lot. So you have that going on.
Is.
And then from what I've seen, as top left, a lot of workplaces are not set up to be effective, to be efficient, to flow well. So I think the impact of how they do their work impacts their well-being. They're not feeling productive at the end of the day. They're feeling like, I didn't get done what I was supposed to do. I'm not sure what I should be doing. Feels really dissolute, depressing, whatever. So yeah, any thoughts on that?
I think you bring up a very good point. I think that people need to be what's the word? If they're not well organized, or if they think that they're organized and they're not, if they're not achieving their things, it's because they don't have a tool that supports them in getting what they need to get done. So, I think in what you just mentioned, it's important that we all understand the value of having a tool that keeps it together for us, so that we don't have to do a lot of this mental thinking about what is next. We have it in front of us, and we actually have the ability to use a tool that helps, keeps us in check, so that I don't have to be breaking my head of what's next and what's this. There's a workflow that occurs. It's just like, when we use a project management tool or any tool, it allows for work to flow in a particular direction. And we know when it's not flowing, and when we know it's not flowing, it's not like we're wondering what's keeping it from flowing. We just know that, something's missing here. So let's look at what we didn't do that's preventing this from flowing. So that's why having, something as top left or a management tool or any tool that way, it really helps us and supports us to keep things in check. So it's a form of checks and balances that are important, and it's a form. It's important to have a tool to keep us in that flow. Without that, without having anything that we use as a tool, it just very easily happens for people that you forget. Like something else comes up, and so you get out of the flow of something. And things in life always come up. That's just the nature of life, right? There's always a curveball that gets thrown in the mix, and something happens, something pulls you away. But if you don't have something that keeps you aligned with what you're up to, then you forget. And then you come back to it and you say, where was I? Or what we were doing. So you have no way to kind of come back to the task at hand, because then something else happens. So it throws you off for a loop again, and you're not back into the flow.
Yep.
So having a tool absolutely is primordially important,
Yeah, I'm convinced that as well, of course. That's why we do top left.
Exactly.
But see, just even my own work is there's a huge mental overload of remembering all those things. Like, hey, I got to connect with that person. There's that. Oh yeah, that. Keeping it in our minds is incredibly taxing. It's not a 1% tax load, but it's like 1,000% trying to remember it all. What should I be doing? What are my priorities? What's next? Is this the best use of my time right now? Is this what I should be doing right now? It's incredibly taxing. And I think and it drives people to work too much, to be checking their phones at night, emailing at night, working weekends, just feeling unaccomplished and not making a difference, even though they actually may be, but without the visual.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think the visual can be really powerful.
Yeah, because the visual has you, exactly. The visual has you see the progression that you're making. The visual aids in actually having you understand that there is something happening, even though you think it's not. There actually is incremental evolution, right? There's things that are moving in increments. And that's important to understand. And there is things that are kind of like, there is some reasoning to the madness that people don't seem to understand when it comes to like me working with a tool, right? Because a lot of people are so used to not working with any tool whatsoever. And then they wonder why, keeping everything in their heads, they forget. They're stressed because they're trying to remember everything, and then they're on their phones and they're on their laptops working on something because they don't have a tool that keeps them aligned with what they said that's what they were going to accomplish. And so the tool is very important in really keeping us aligned. And without that, you're really going at it blindly, and it causes us more stress than good. And like you said, keeping everything in your head it just doesn't work. It increases stress 1,000-fold for sure.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, it's toxic. Yeah, so personally we need the tools, but I think also as a team, it's crucial as well to have the right conversations to move these things ahead, to work together instead of individually, not being silos, to have the right conversation at the right time.
Exactly. Yeah. The worst thing that we can do in any company is keeping everybody siloed. That really is a bad mix of things, because when everybody's siloed, there's no collaborative efforts. Nobody, we're not working together. We're not working as a team. If people are siloed, there's no team. A team is what makes a difference. Having good, strong teams is what really empowers a company to move forward. And, it's in the unity of the team that actually can make a huge project possible. It's not by individuals being siloed. There is no communication. There's, everybody's like in their own world. So nothing really powerfully can move that way. But it's in working jointly together, collaboratively, that could happen. So, strong teams, strong team leadership, and strong team building of, getting a team, building a team is so important.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen that over the years as I see these like one-on-one conversations going. I'm like, enough of that. We need to get together, have the group meeting, work on it together, and not have all these back channel conversations. Like, you got to work together, create the psychological safety, build the trust, hash it out together. But it requires a lot of intention and emotional strength on the part of the leader as well to create that environment, just to get people out of their comfort zones. And because to collaborate requires some positive tension or conflict, as well as calling each other out around values and moving stuff forward. It requires talking, and you can't be defensive and such. You got to work through those things.
Yeah.
How can a leader impact their team it's kind of creating a special thing that they can really collaborate to get their work done better and quicker, getting that value out to clients? I guess how does a project manager or service manager go about that, to impact their culture that way?
One of the things that I used to do when I was in training and development in corporations, I'd have a team of top level managers and CEOs. And then I'd ask around the room how many years experience each of them had in their given department. And so I'd add them up. So I said, you had 10 years experience and you had 11, 12, but if we add them all up, there's 350 years experience. So would you rather have 350 years experience collaborating together, right?
Yep.
Or would you rather have 10 years by yourself, right? So look at the power. the power of that experience spoke for itself. And then people would actually be scratching their heads and say, wow, So it made a lot of sense for people to understand it that way with numbers. The other thing that I discovered as well with, people understanding the value of collaborative work and team building is that it's important to acknowledge our strengths and our weaknesses. So all of us have strengths and all of us have weaknesses. So when we are working together as a team, the weaknesses that one might have could be somebody else's strength, so we could learn from them, and them learning from us. So that's where it's important to understand that and to acknowledge it as such, that there's nothing wrong with having a weakness. We can learn from each other. We can actually benefit from cooperating with each other, collaborating with each other, because there's so much benefit to have. So as a leader, that's one of the things that leaders should do automatically, is actually do that numbers exercise. How many years experience do we bring together as a team versus as an individual? And then the aspect of like who we are as humans, having weaknesses and strengths. Well, we learn off of each other by working together and collaborating with each other. So there's nothing taken away from us. It helps us because we could learn from others and others could learn from us. So, it's really a great way of building our own potential and making a difference at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great exercise and very simple to do, right? Like,
when
did you first start using technology or been in the business? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that keeps changing all the time as their teams change, as people come and go. So need to do that every year. It's a good one.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's okay too, because, like you were saying before, technology changes fast, everything changes. So, one of the things that a lot of people don't do as technology changes and progresses, we don't stop and say, okay, here we are. We're here right now. We're at the cusp of this. Or we're at the edge of this. This is changing. This is transforming. What do we do? How do we mitigate the changes that are coming upon us? What do we do with what's coming up? How do we kind of grasp the opportunities of what's coming up? What do we do internally with what's coming up? What we're seeing in the foreground? What we're noticing coming? What do we do with it? So we don't have enough of that, brainstorming either. So we're not, so because people are not doing that, they don't have a way of anticipating, so anticipating something is important because then it mitigates what we might be confronting, and gives us a head start, gives us a start in saying, okay, well, at least we've thought about it. We thought about ways where we can actually, what we could do, how we could mitigate something, the changes that are coming, technological changes, how it impacts us, because it impacts everybody, whether we're in the technological realm of things or not. Everybody's impacted by technology, So I think that's an important thing to do as well, to be able to anticipate, think ahead, and, keeping your ear to the ground and saying, okay, this is coming up. How does it impact us? How does it impact our customers? What do we need to do to actually either benefit from it or, transform out of it and take on something else from it? Use something else in its changing, all of those things, so proactiveness is very, very important, being proactive instead of reactive. Most human beings are so used to being reactive than proactive. And that's what gets people in trouble, is because they're waiting the last minute, or they're not even aware that there's a change coming. And so they react rather than being proactive and being aware that there's something coming, and that's,
and they're often
so a proactive,
too late. By the time we respond, it's too late, and now they're laggard. So they've gone. That's just, I've seen so many tech companies, and seen sometimes we fall in that trap as well. Is they start out as a startup, they're innovative, they're ahead of the curves, they're listening, they got the time to research, they're proactive, they build it out, and it's a slow grind down on their innovation. They're not keeping their ear to the ground. They're so busy growing and building their business that they're not responding. They're not looking ahead at what waves are coming. They get drowned by the tsunami wave that comes that they could have totally seen coming instead of riding it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happens to a lot of people, they get in their comfort zone and they stay there. So then they ride the wave of comfort rather than being aware of what's to come, and especially with technology, the changes happen so fast, so rapid, that if you don't have your ear to the ground, basically, you've lost the game. You find yourself where you were once a forerunner, you become, at the very end of the game. So, that's the whole value of being, proactive about it and having your ear to the ground so that you can always stay ahead of the curve.
Yep. And yeah, I've just seen too many. I guess it's not just tech; it can happen anywhere. But we hold on to what we've built because we're like, hey, we fought for this, we bled, we cried, we sweat for this, and we don't want to walk away from it, even though there may be something much more effective and efficient.
Exactly.
Or if we were starting over, that we would use that approach or that strategy. But because now we've built it the old way, we're like, we've got whatever million invested into it, we don't want to just throw it out.
Yeah, that is a big problem for a lot of people. They have such a vested interest in what they've done, not thinking that what they could do if they were to let go of what they've done and reinvent themselves. There's so much more available to them by reinventing themselves rather than being stuck in what they did, because what they did is already past because they did it. It's already gone. Yeah, but we invested so much. Yeah, but it's gone. It's history. So if you were to reinvent yourself, what would that look like? So people have a very hard time doing that because they just find it so difficult to let go of vested interest. And the vested interest should really be in, how we reinvent ourselves, given where everything's going, right? So then they become dinosaurs very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe last topic for our time today is, on a training the other day, and just something that stuck out to me is this expression that the heart of change is emotion. Okay. Is that accurate?
The heart of change is emotion.
If you look at change in the workplace, in our teams, how we do things, it's not a money question. It's not a process or a procedure. It's ultimately working with people's emotions.
I think that's somewhat accurate. I don't think it's a real formula.
Okay.
I think people's emotions do play a huge role, and I don't think emotions are at the heart of change. And emotions don't cause change. They cause people to maybe change, but the cause of change is really not emotion. Because emotions, they're very fickle. They come and go, right? It's not like they're not sustained in any way for a long period of time. Unless people hold grudges and they hold anger, they'll hold that for a long time. It depends on the person. So emotion is not really at the heart of change. The heart of change is really commitment. The heart of change is commitment. And change per se is a constant anyway, because everything changes and it always changes. It's continually changing. So it's one of those statements that I don't know who said it and why they said it.
Yeah, it depends on the context, for sure, yeah.
It depends on the context, right? But I think at the heart of anything that we want to achieve is commitment, is true commitment, and then it takes the discipline to stay true to that commitment. Then beyond change is transformation. So the ability and the willingness to transform. And, that's my point of view, so transformation is a lot more powerful than change because change is a constant and everything changes anyway. But transformation requires something. Transformation requires for us to kind of be willing to take what's so and make it something else, right? So if I'm this way, if I'm this particular way and stuck into a particular pattern, habit, or whatever, it'll take something of me to change that or to transform that. And it's not going to be my emotion. And it's not going to be for me to change. It's got to be me having the willingness to transform that habit into something else, So I have to take that habit that I don't like, that I said, okay, it's run its course and it's not serving me. I got to transform that habit into another habit. I know sometimes it's very hard for people to make the link between or to actually see the distinction between change and transformation. But there is a huge distinction.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of, let's say, weight loss, getting healthier, getting in shape. Getting to a commitment requires some amount of emotional processing to say, okay, enough's enough, something's got to change. And then obviously it requires commitment or discipline to follow through with the habits and the do's and the don'ts, remembering that commitment and where I want to get to as a goal. But it's still, actually emotions just get in the way because there can be tired or loneliness or overwhelm, and you can be falling for the cravings, but the emotions are really nothing. It's just, that can happen anywhere.
Well, but emotions could either make you sad, upset with yourself. Oh, I'm fat. And why am I fat? And then you can start beating yourself up. So what do they serve you? They absolutely serve nothing. Or you could be happy about it. Oh, I'm doing this. But that's what I'm saying. They're very fickle because they have a very short lifespan. So we go through a gamut of emotions every day. We go up and down with all of our emotions. We can wake up and be super happy, and then something happens, and then all of a sudden we're in another state. So emotions is a state that changes very rapidly, where commitment is long term, because commitment requires a certain amount of time for that to come to fruition. And so commitment is really the source of something being transformed. So, you want to go from, let's say, 220 pounds and transform yourself to a 170 pound slim, really fit person. That commitment will help transform your body, but it's a process. And inside that process, you will have gone through a gamut of emotions. You'll have gone through, oh, I don't feel good tonight, or I don't feel good today, and why am I doing this, and I still haven't lost that much weight, and because everything occurs in increments. And our emotional state doesn't handle that very well. So we have to do a lot of talking to ourselves to keep ourselves aligned with our commitment. But our commitment is what keeps us in the game, not our emotions, because our emotions are all over the place.
Yep. So just tying back to top left, and MSPs who are trying to adopt the Kanban approach, visualizing their work. I think not enough of them are really committed to a real transformation and carrying through with it. They're not getting it. They're looking for a quick fix, and they're not going to get the real transformation in their team. They're not changing the conversations they're having every day. They're not having any habits on how they manage their work.
That's the biggie, right? Yeah. That's the big question for people to ask themselves. Are we really committed to transform how we're doing things? And what does that look like? And do we have a tool that's going to get us there? Are we willing to take on a tool, and are we willing to do what's necessary with the tool in question? Using a tool that keeps our commitments alive, shows us a pathway, keeps us in check with the pathway. Are we doing the things that we need to do to team build team, stay strong, having the conversations that are needed so that we could achieve the goals that we set out to achieve.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Francesco, we're at the top of this hour on the recording. We've covered a lot from your vision and mission with unlocking potential and human potential, mind-body connection, coaching, integrity, visualization, teamwork, those things. So it's been great.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
To be continued.
It's great. Yeah.
Thanks again for joining us. Very happy. My privilege to have you on today, and hope to hear from our audience about this.
Yeah, I look forward to
some of these in the future. So, all right. So I'll talk to you soon, and we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, everyone, for dialing in on this one.